today I'm here with Aloe Blacc. Aloe Blacc is a musician best known for his amazing singles, I Need a Dollar and The Man, which topped the charts. He's also known for writing and performing vocals on Wake Me Up, which I'm sure we've all heard. He's also been a member of the hip hop duo Emanon and has been actively involved in Malaria No More, a charity which is basically dedicated to ending malaria deaths. We're very honoured and pleased to have Aloe here with us today. Just as a reminder to everyone, today you'll be able to submit questions through the chat function. So please submit those and we'll be able to ask some of them at the end. So now I'll hand over to Aloe just to say a few words about himself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Yes, I am a singer-songwriter, musician, philanthropist, and activist. And I try to use my voice for positive social transformation. Happy to be here to speak to you today.
Aloe, just to kind of go into obviously your amazing career that we've all had so many songs from, I just wanted to ask what inspired you to start writing music and to start getting involved in the music industry initially?
I started writing music when I was very young. I first engaged in music as a hip hop artist. I was a young kid on the block doing breakdancing with the other kids when I was 4 years old, listening to hip hop music. And eventually my father bought a cassette that was released by LL Cool J. One of his first albums, probably his second album, was called Bad, Bigger and Deffer. And I started learning LL Cool J lyrics, then I started writing my own lyrics that sounded very much like LL Cool J's. Eventually, I got into recording when I was in high school and started recording hip hop music with my longtime music partner, DJ Exile, who was producing the beats. Eventually, we released music on cassettes and CDs and vinyl way before the digital era of music. And I started falling in love with the music that we were sampling from in hip hop. We were sampling from classic rock, jazz, soul, and all different genres. And I started to really take a liking to the songwriters that I was sampling from, the Nina Simones, Bill Withers, Stevie Wonder, Paul Simon, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor. These lyricists impressed me as much as Nas and Q-Tip and Jay-Z and Biggie. And I wanted to write songs that could touch people and affect their emotions in ways that these songwriters were affecting mine. And that's when I started to make a transition from the hip hop music that I was making to being more of a singer-songwriter.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned that you've kind of made that transition, and I think it's clear that your work is quite a mix of different genres. Do you think there's something in particular that's kind of pushed you to branch out and explore these different genres?
Yes, branching out is part of the education that I had in music at a young age, but also as a hip hop artist. My parents are from Panama, and I grew up in Southern California, so my experience with music was diasporic. The African diaspora offering the sounds of the Caribbean, from reggae, soca, and calypso, to the sounds of Latin America and Brazil, bossa nova, samba, merengue, salsa, cumbia, and then growing up in Southern California, being very close to, where hip hop was growing in LA after having been transported from New York, hearing hip hop music, engaging in hip hop music, my parents also being music lovers, listening to soul music and pop and R&B, all of these different sounds were influencing me. At age 9, I decided I wanted to play the trumpet. So in symphonic band in school and in marching band and in orchestra, I was playing orchestral music, classical music. So I had so many different influences. And then as a hip hop artist, I was sampling from so many different genres that I just embraced everything that felt good. And it didn't matter in particular what genre it was. And when I wanted to make something that I thought felt or sounded good, I would do music in any genre. I wouldn't try to pigeonhole myself.
Yeah, I think, you know, what you said about not pigeonholing yourself is definitely really key. And I know you've done a lot of work as a solo artist, but also as a duo. How do you think, like, what have you seen to be the biggest differences between working solo and working, you know, with other collaborators?
Right. Well, collaboration is key. I think even when I'm presenting as a solo artist, there is some collaboration that's happening behind the scene potentially. But I would say the biggest difference is developing an artist profile that I think people can understand and trust. As a solo artist, because I was so interested in many different genres and styles, I found that it was difficult to develop an audience beyond the niche music loving audiophiles that I think were my first core fan base. These were people who just enjoyed all different kinds of music, and they didn't necessarily need a story, a superhero character that occupied one lane. When I decided to make music in a particular genre in 2009, I did a throwback album, a throwback soul album. And I focused mainly on the sounds of late 60s, early 70s soul. This particular artist profile helped me to establish an audience that I think could read me better, right? Much different from my first solo album, which I like to call the table of contents to my career, because that album, Shine Through, includes very experimental sounds. It includes some very traditional sounds. It has salsa, it has folk music, it has hip hop, it has soul, neo soul, future soul, and broken beat. It just included a lot of different elements. But when I did the subsequent album, the Good Things album, that was an homage to all of my heroes in soul music, my career really blossomed. And I attribute that to the fact that the music was much more focused, and that the character or the artist profile that people were receiving was much more palatable, understandable, and it told a story. And ultimately, as entertainers, that's what we do. We tell stories. And the more salient and concise the story, I think the easier for people to receive and communicate and absorb.
Definitely. I think, like you said, there is a key element of storytelling when it comes to writing any song or any music. So I just wanted to ask, following up on that, what is your main motivation when you're sitting down thinking about writing a song, writing your next song? What kind of comes to mind and what things motivate you?
So in terms of a main motivation, one is just to be able to say something that someone else will care about. I enjoy that part of music. Many of my peers are focused only on expressing what they feel and exercising maybe their emotion. And I do that from time to time, but I also really enjoy the puzzle of telling a story or putting a couple of words together that make a rhyme with a melody and a rhythm that can impact your emotional state, and not just exercise my emotional state, or not just share my emotional state, but, you know, play in the sandbox of adulthood where I am affecting your emotions. It's almost like any kind of entertainment you watch, whether it's television, film, news programming, sports, games. What we are doing is eliciting a response. And so what motivates me is being able to tell a story that can elicit a response. What inspires me to tell these stories oftentimes is many and varied. My children sometimes inspire the songs. Just by saying a couple of words, they can inspire an entire, idea that will become a song. Sometimes it's other artists. I listen to their music and I want to make a response to the song that they created. Sometimes it's an emotion or a feeling that I'm having that I want to share. And sometimes it really is just the puzzle of putting really beautiful words together that say something that speaks to humanity and our common experience.
So on that, in terms of common experience, would you say that for you, music is a more powerful tool than just kind of listening to the beat and the melody of it, that it's something you're kind of trying to use to portray, a message, and use it for like activism as well as just letting people listen to your music?
Yeah, certainly. I think there are so many uses for music. I really do believe that there is something that is to be said for music that has a message and that is speaking to the soul and speaking to humanity. But I know that there's something to be said for music that is just to party to. And I've engaged in making that kind of music. I've partied to that kind of music. As a growing adult, and and having a family and recognizing the power of entertainment, power of words, the power of poetry and song, I have a deep sense of responsibility to create music that will offer people comfort, offer them a moment to celebrate, offer them a moment to be within them in their own thoughts, to process feelings or events or trauma that they've had in their lives. And that's how I want to use my music. I recognize that some of my peers use their music to promote trauma, which it's the same as going to watch a film that has a lot of violence and trauma in it. There's a place and time for it. It's just not my forte. It's not what I want to share, and I feel like there should be a balance in the entertainment world. And I made a pledge to be that balance where, if you spend some time listening to music that's overly violent and misogynistic, then you can also have an option to listen to something else that's not. And I want to be that something else.
Yeah, I agree. Your music is definitely really powerful. And I think one of my favorite songs, I have to say, is I Need a Dollar. And I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me on that. So it would be lovely to hear more about that song in particular, and I guess the inspirations behind it, as well as the process for what became a chart topping and groundbreaking song.
Yeah, I Need a Dollar was a song that started out as an idea that was in my head, inspired by recordings I was listening to that were field recordings of chain gang workers, men who were imprisoned, forced to work in the fields and on railroads and in cotton fields, and basically coming up with their own songs as they worked, as part of their comfort, as part of their bonding, and to pass the time. So they would make up songs that were sort of like the blues, singing their problems, and it would be call and response between one field worker and the others, or it could just be one solo singer telling his tales of woe. I was inspired by those songs, and I Need a Dollar I wrote in that fashion, in that style. And as I was going through my daily life, I would come up with a new lyric and a new line or a new verse here and there. It was a process of about, I don't know, 5 years. I started writing it well before I recorded it. And I didn't record it until I met with a really talented team of producers that could produce in the soul genre. And we jammed on a beat in the studio. We were making a bunch of different instrumental beats that I would write lyrics to. When we made the beat for I Need a Dollar, I had the idea in my head, of course, with 2 or 3 verses already written, that I would then sing on this new instrumental jam that we'd created. And it just felt right. It worked out. You know, and I never had an opportunity to write I Need a Dollar down. It was just a song that always was, that I wrote in my head over the years. And by the time it was something to record, I kind of had a song ready to go.
Wow, wow. I think 5 years, honestly, it just shows how much thought and dedication you put into the process of, songwriting. Would you say that with some of your other songs, it's been similar in that you've spent a lot of time before kind of, going into the studio and making it a song, thinking about it and, brewing over the lyrics in that way?
Yeah, I think so. A song like Wake Me Up was in process at least 2 years prior to recording. I had written the lyric, Wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older. I had written the lyric all this time. I was finding myself, I didn't know I was lost. And I had a bunch of loose couplets and ideas that I synthesized in the studio when I was recording the song. And it felt right as I was synthesizing the ideas. Although they were written at disparate times in places with different contexts of emotion, they all seemed to fall into place when put together. And I feel like most of my songs are a combination of written in the moment of recording, along with written for many, many months and years prior. Nowadays, depending on what I'm actually doing, if I'm in a session with other songwriters, we will finish a song. We will start and finish a song in 4 hours. And that may be the final version that I end up recording. That's when I'm working with other songwriters. But if I'm working on a song by myself, it's usually days. I don't have a specific time constraint when I'm writing a song by myself.
Yeah, definitely. I think, obviously this method works because your songs are so incredible, and obviously all these good things take time to kind of cultivate. I know you mentioned Wake Me Up, which is another one of the incredible songs you've written. Is there a more kind of like personal story? I know you said you spent a long time thinking about the lyrics, letting them come to you.
Yeah, the personal story behind Wake Me Up was that I had gone from indie obscure artist to major label, television, radio, recognized artist. And I had a pinch me moment where I thought to myself, this is a dream, I'm living a dream, wake me up when it's all over. And it's, of course, a cliche phrase, but it was a real feeling, a real sense of having arrived. And that's where I wrote those lyrics. And I first wrote Wake Me Up When It's All Over when I'm older and I'm sober. And I wrote that just because it rhymed. It was the quick rhyme. But, I'm pretty straight edge. I don't really drink. So, and I don't get high. So I figured it doesn't apply to my life. It may apply to someone else. And oftentimes I'm writing songs for other folks. But I thought, if this is a song for me, then it should apply to me. And I thought wiser and older felt like a better statement to make. And I think it proved positive.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously through Wake Me Up, you had the opportunity to work with Avicii. I just wanted to ask, what was that experience like for you, working with him, and how did that go?
Well, rest in peace to Avicii. He was certainly one of the greatest EDM producers and dance DJs that we've had in this generation. Um, Working with Avicii was special because I got to see him making the music, making the beats that he would make. I've worked with others, and not everybody's making their own beats. They have teams around them. They have people who are starting parts of projects and they're finishing projects, but he certainly was a craftsman. He cared deeply about making something that was different and not necessarily following a rubric, but having a sound that was identifiable and different and distinct. At first, he was looking for an artist. He had heard I Need a Dollar, and he was looking for an artist who could sing in the essence and feel of something like Marvin Gaye. But we never ended up working on anything that felt or sounded like Marvin Gaye. We ended up working on something that sounded more like folk and country, which is the direction he ended up taking his project in. And it was a huge moment for the music industry and dance music in particular, with him creating this new genre of folktronica.
Are there any lessons that you learned from this experience? I know, obviously, these things don't get done in a day, so you must have spent a lot of time working with him, developing the sound and everything.
What I learned is that when you walk into the studio with someone who is great at what they do, you can trust that the final product is going to be amazing. When I went in the studio, I worked with Avicii and also Mike Einziger from Incubus. And Mike is also great at what he does. I think we all came into the studio with 110%, and we left with something that really felt like it was really good. We didn't know what was going to happen. There's so many factors that can determine what becomes a hit, but we knew that we had offered something great. And that first recording was just voice and guitar. We let Tim of Avicii do what he does best to that voice and guitar, to that acoustic performance, and he turned it into an epic sonic foundation.
Wow, I think that was definitely a very powerful collaboration. I know you've obviously worked with a lot of other artists on many of your songs and helping them with their songs as well. I just wanted to ask, out of all of those collaborations, is there one that particularly stood out for you that you most enjoyed or learnt the most from?
In terms of my solo career collaborations, I'd say Wake Me Up I most enjoyed, just because of what came of the song and how it touched the world. But there are others that working on my studio album called Lift Your Spirit with a producer by the name of DJ Khalil was really special because of Dan Seif and Sam Barsh and Chin Injeti, who were also songwriter, musicians that were in the room creating with us. These are, very talented musicians who could interpret my ideas really well. So when I brought the idea for The Man into the studio, I told Sam Barsh, who plays keys, that as a youngster on trumpet in symphonic band, I used to play a song called the Russian Sailor's Dance from a Russian play called The Red Poppy. And that the melody went a little bit like this. And so I sang him the melody, and he took that and he interpreted that melody on the keys, or, put chords around it and interpreted on the keys. And then I told Khalil, I was working on this hip hop track where I was sampling Elton John's Your Song, and I used the lyric and I repeated it, and he automatically understood what that was and where I was going with that. And I said, but I also love this beat from this Nas track from his first album, Illmatic, and this drum pattern. And Khalil, he's the consummate professional. He understood right away. He could interpret what I meant by, I need this drum sound. And he made something that was inspired by that drum pattern and sound. And Dante Winslow was on the trumpet in that studio session. And I said, Dante, I went to an Ethiopian wedding, and the music that they were playing was so infectious, and there's a lot of horn trumpet in the music, and it has this kind of 6/8 rhythm and pattern. Can you put that on top of the 4/4 during the bridge? And so in the bridge section, there's this really, I'd say, Ethio-ethnic rhythm that most people won't get, but that's something that I really felt at the moment. I wanted that pattern to kind of suggest the diaspora of African music that is culminating in this particular song. And also the idea of music is timeless and placeless. It's everywhere all at once, and we're all absorbing. I know that's a lot of context to put into one song, but I feel like it matters in the end because it ended up being a pretty big song. And that particular collaborative effort, working with DJ Khalil and his team of musicians, I hold really close.
Yeah, definitely. I know recently you took a bit of a break from music before 2020, where you released your album, All Love Everything. I think that album was definitely very big, and everyone was, I guess, happy to see, a comeback from you and a lot of the new songs you released. I just wanted to ask, for this album, I guess, leading on from the break, what made you decide to come back and release this album, and what did it mean to you personally as well?
Wow. Okay, so between the two albums, Lift Your Spirit and All Love Everything, is roughly 6, 7, yeah, almost 8 years. I was raising a family. Like, I have 2 kids now. My daughter was born in 2013. Lift Your Spirit came out in 2014. And from there, I went on a few tours. And after that, I was like, I just want to be home with my kids. Then I had another kid in 2016. And I focused on family. And that's why All Love Everything is a collection of songs that really focus more on my relationship with my family and friends.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously it's great that you've kind of drawn on all of these experiences. And that's interesting to hear what led you to, I guess, make it. Is there a particular song on the album that I guess is most personal to you? I know there is a song called Family, which kind of talks about family, but I just wanted to ask, I guess, what your favorite song is on that album.
My favorite song probably would be Harvard. I just really appreciate the story that I'm telling, and the humanizing 2 different people from 2 different spectrums of life. Me being a world traveling recording artist and entertainer, speaking to kind of a blue collar single parent with the same kind of concerns that we have for our kids and for our families, but having completely different lives. So that's one of my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah, it's great. I know you also mentioned touring. I think that's definitely a really big part for any artist, touring. And it's obviously, I guess you can touch a bit about this, but it's obviously a different experience from in the studio writing the song to actually being able to perform it in front of thousands of people, essentially. So what was that like to you? Was it surreal in any way, kind of actually seeing the appreciation that people have for your songs?
It is. It's always a great feeling. It's an awesome exchange of energy when I'm on stage. And the most beautiful thing is that the kind of music I make, I think, speaks to so many different types of people and demographics. The young and the old. It speaks to all different races and ethnicities and religions. I am always in awe of the kind of people that I see at my shows, shoulder to shoulder, singing along. It really is inspiring to experience, and I live for those moments. It feels good.
Yeah. Obviously, due to like the pandemic, a lot of artists haven't been able to tour recently, which has been, I guess, sad for everyone involved. But what do you think are like the main things that the pandemic, the impact it's had on the music industry as a whole, but also yourself as an artist?
Wow. Yes, definitely the impact on the music industry is affecting the folks who are on stage performing and touring, which we can't do. But then there's a whole economy behind those people who are the front men and women on stage. There's the band, there's the technical people, the lighting people, the stage hands, and the venues, the people who work at the venues. All of this infrastructure has really suffered in a huge way because of the pandemic, but almost every industry has had the same impact. I think in terms of music, it's made folks recognize how important the live element is, because especially in this digital era, a lot of artists aren't able to make a living from streaming. Most artists, I'd say, 99% of artists are not making a living from streaming because the economics don't work in the way that it used to, when, let's say, I could perform at a concert, and as I got off stage, I could sell a CD to the audience. Nobody wants to buy CDs now because nobody has CD players. Our laptops don't provide them anymore. If you buy a new laptop, the cars that you purchase don't have CD players in them. Everything has gone digital. And it's not as though you have to download your digital anymore. You just stream it. So it's really changed the economy around music. For me, I had already had this experience where my music was being licensed by television shows and films and commercials. That's how my career started, really, when I Need a Dollar was licensed for a TV show called How to Make It in America. It's these kinds of business transactions that have sustained my career, much more so than downloads and streams. But it's the licenses in conjunction with live performances. I have, in the pandemic, decided to try to mentor the musicians that I work with in the concept of writing music and creating songs that can be licensed in television and film and TV commercials, because it's another way to stay active, to keep using your skill set, and to make an income when we're not able to be out on the road earning an income.
Yeah. So Aloe, you mentioned that you're mentoring like younger musicians. I think, would you say that the digital era that we're in now, do you think that makes it easier for new musicians to kind of break through, because they don't really have to, get a record deal? They can kind of, I guess, be found on YouTube or Spotify and get known in those kind of ways. Do you think that's made the music industry better in a sense?
I can't say if it's better or worse. It's just new and different. I think it's harder if I'm looking at it from the perspective of how I was able to develop as an artist. The channels to being present and available are wide and many now, but that means there are also many more voices that are being presented. There's also an added complication that algorithms are potentially saturating our ability to consume with the same artists over and over. So we aren't really getting the opportunity to discover new artists as often as we would have had there not been this algorithmic saturation, so to speak. I feel like the SoundClouds and YouTubes of the world and TikToks certainly help to present new music, help us all to present new music immediately to a potential fan base. And if your art is entertaining enough, people will share it with others and it'll become popular. I guess the word now is viral. And if it does, then you've got a lot of people who are paying attention. The hard part is, how do you keep them paying attention and create a career off of a moment? That's what I think may be harder now, because we have so many opportunities to entertain ourselves on demand. You really have to be an exceptional, entertaining voice and character to keep any person's attention more than one song. And that's why you see, in my opinion, that's why you see so many new artists that are much more vibrant and vocal and I'd say even crazy than the past.
Definitely. I know you've mentioned vibrant and crazy new artists. Do you think this is kind of due to the pressure of this like TikTok and Instagram age that we're in? Do you think artists feel the pressure to become this really big personality outside of their music in order to stay relevant and not just be, I guess, one-hit wonders, as people would say?
Yeah, I think that has always been the case. You've always had to be larger than life as an entertainer and an artist. What we had in the past was anonymity, and we had the ability to be silent and invisible for a time before we come out with new music. But now there is a push and a culture, a voracious appetite to always have new content from your artist. And, artists feel that pressure and want to continuously and constantly give and give and give content, whether it's their music or their photos or, some moment that they want to share. I feel like that kind of robs the fans of real artistic merited moments. But then again, in the world of entertainment, at the end of the day, it's, are you being entertained? So, it's just, I come from a whole different era of and practice. So it's new for me. I don't find the same value in creating content that is not music, that is not a well-written song. Even if my fans want to know what I had for breakfast, or, what I feel like wearing to the next concert, and they want to see pictures and that kind of thing, I don't necessarily feel like that is what I want to share. And I'd rather wait till I have something really good, like a really good song.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree that, an artist should share what they want to share with people, and no one is entitled to know what you had for breakfast this morning. But I think in this day and age, I think it's unavoidable, would you say? Because a lot of the time in the past, maybe you'd be hiding from the press with their cameras, but nowadays anyone could whip out their phone and take a picture of an artist, and then that could be on Instagram. A lot of stuff gets misconstrued. And what would you say are the pressures for artists in today's society when the press, people, everyone, they're essentially under
Yeah.
constant scrutiny.
The biggest pressure comes really from the criticism that you face from just being yourself. And that's the harshest. You know, you can read 1,000 really positive messages from all your fans, and there's one very negative message that sticks in your mind. And it's hard to erase that one negative message. I think at the end of the day, you just have to have confidence in what you do and being yourself, and recognize that, you know, what's good for everyone on one side of your music may not be good for other folks on the other side, and they have the freedom to voice their opinion, and you just have to put it into perspective. It's just an opinion, and it really doesn't have any bearing unless the opinion's coming from someone you respect. And when it's just an anonymous kind of user or an account on the other side of the internet, it can't hold that much weight, you know. You have to be able to get over it quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would essentially become overbearing if someone were to sit there and think about every single comment that someone who they don't even know, I guess, wrote about them. And I think it would be interesting to hear from you, actually, because I'm sure over your long career so far, you've experienced some of these hateful comments, or even in general, just pressures associated with fame. What have been the ways that you have like dealt with these and, you know, maintained your sanity throughout all of the obstacles you might have faced?
Right. Well, I think for me, it's the fact that, one, that I had the ability to enter the major music industry as an adult, and social media didn't exist for me as a child. So I already had a sense of self. If I were younger, it would certainly be overbearing. It would be overwhelming to have to stomach the comments that come in from haters, so to speak. But for me, it's you know, I just take it in stride. I just look at it like percentages. You know, if it's 0.01% of the comments are bad, that's pretty good averages. And my goal is to create as much joy and happiness in the world, and it looks like what I'm doing works.
Definitely, definitely. Is there any, I guess, advice you would give to like young people who are trying to make it in the industry and aspiring to, I guess, be big musicians like you are right now? Is there any advice you'd like to give them?
Yeah, I think you have to remember that what we do is entertainment. If you are not entertaining someone, then it's probably not going to work. And you don't have to sell your soul and sell yourself and who you are as a person just to become famous. Create wonderful, timeless art that you like and that all of your friends like. And if your friends really like it, it should find its way into other people's hearts. Hopefully it'll find its way into, you know, the world's hearts through your own grassroots efforts. But in my case, it was a little bit of timing, luck, and then the right people heard the music and started to promote and invest in my career. So if you're good enough, the folks who I like to say that the money will find you, right? The money will find you. And it's not necessarily about money, but if you want to have a career and sustain a livelihood, then you've got to be making a certain amount to pay rent, to pay for your food and your health and that kind of thing. So make the music or the art that you really care about, that really says something about your state of being, your generation, and love what you do. And then if you can't make a living from it, have a job and make it on the side. Before I did music full time, I was a business consultant in corporate America. I worked as a strategy consultant. I did not bet everything on music. I certainly recognized that music could come and go. but luckily it came and stayed. And I would still make it if I was a business consultant. I'd still be making music on the side and creating art.
Yeah, yeah, it's important that I guess you've spoken about your history and how you've kind of been realistic as well, but also followed your dream, which is important. You mentioned that you were a strategy consultant for a bit. I think that's very interesting because a lot of musicians start very young. They go straight from high school and delve deep into the music industry essentially. But I understand that, you've gone to university, you've done some work beforehand. Do you think that experience, I guess, taught you valuable lessons that you've kind of translated into the music industry?
I certainly feel that my experience as a business consultant, having graduated from university, gave me the kind of endurance and experience and knowledge that I need to engage my work as a businessman who also is the artist. And I encourage any artist to continue their education. There's something to be said for having knowledge and experience outside of just your art. Art is a very self indulgent industry, right? We spend a lot of time focusing on our vision and exacting our vision in our way without especially in music, without other people's opinions. Getting into the real world, working in the real world, experiencing education, being educated across multiple disciplines, I think is important. It helps to inform the work that you end up delivering to the world, and helps to inform you as a human being and gives you a little bit more depth and breadth as a person.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. There's obviously been a lot of ups and downs. Like this hasn't been, a straight and smooth journey for you. I think, what would you say, I guess, if you could go back to, the start of your career when you were just going into music? Do you think there's anything you would change about it, or would you do everything the exact same as you've done it?
Wow. I probably would have uh, I probably would have worked a little bit more diligently, released more music faster, probably an album a year if I could go back. I would certainly engage the industry differently. As an older person in the music business, I wasn't a teenager being handled by the infrastructure. I had my own perspective and I had my own ability to make decisions. I certainly have, but I say I may have made decisions that postponed or delayed certain successes in my career. But at the same time, I feel like, perhaps I also avoided a lot of the kinds of pressures that some of my peers face that drives them over the edge or, makes them want to quit music. So I feel like for the most part, I'd keep everything, but I would probably release more music faster.
Yeah, I think we've spoken obviously a lot about your music, and I think a lot of us kind of see you as Aloe Blacc, the musician, but like you've mentioned, you have a family, you do a lot of different things. So I think just a more personal question, I was just wondering, um, apart from music, what sort of things do you do for fun?
Hmm.
What sort of things do you engage in?
I'm really interested in storytelling, obviously, because I'm a songwriter, and I want to be able to do that in ways that are more robust and profound, longer than 3-minute song, hopefully in a 30-minute television show or an hour-long, 2-hour-long film, and start creating other narrative kind of experiences from my skill set as a songwriter, as a storyteller. I also love the idea of recording all of our memories. Back when I first could start recording, I got a little tape cassette recorder that I would take everywhere. I would go to concerts and hang out with my friends, and I would just always have the tape recorder recording our conversations or whatever was happening. And then I got my first digital camera when they first came out, and I would film and photograph everything. And about 2015 or so, I started looking into 360 cameras, photospheric documentation, invested in a company, created some products, and started taking photos because my first kid was being born, and I wanted to photograph everything that I could in as much depth and as robust as possible. So I started engaging in the 360 photo and film industry, which led to an interest in the virtual world and virtual reality and motion graphics and photogrammetry and all of the things that are part now of this Web3 development and the metaverse. So these are things that I'm very interested in helping to push music within the metaverse, but also create these new enhanced experiences in virtual reality and augmented reality, with avatars, with motion graphics, with locations within the metaverse. And aside from that, philanthropic and activist engagement here in the United States, working to change a doctrine that it's not a law, it's just a practice by our highest court, the Supreme Court, that makes police unaccountable for violating civil rights. So if they steal money from you, if they physically abuse you, if they kill you, your family nor you can seek remedy in the court against them because they have this immunity from the Supreme Court, and all of the lower courts follow what the Supreme Court has created as this doctrine. So I'm working really hard with Music Coalition, and then lobbying our lawmakers and our lawmakers to change the laws so that they must be interpreted in a new way by the courts to eliminate the possibility of this, really heinous interpretation, which, as we see with the number of police murdering unarmed people and in the United States, I think creates a God complex that they know they have immunity, that they are never going to be held responsible for their actions. We have to change that kind of thing. So I push for that. And on the philanthropic side, I'm looking at right now some technology that has been developed by some scientists at the university in Houston around how to block COVID, basically. It's pretty interesting research. I think that it is extremely promising. And because these researchers are cancer researchers, they don't necessarily focus on COVID. They don't have the time nor the resources to continue the research. I found the research that they're doing, and I'm hoping to help them find the money to continue the research and hopefully go through all the trials that we need to get it to become a product that we can put into the marketplace and get to everyone. Because if we have it, we can certainly use it for the better. It'll change my industry for sure, the music industry. It'll change the sports industry because, it'll change every industry, hotels, restaurants, if we have something that could potentially block COVID.
Yeah, definitely, Aloe. I think it's great that you're not just focusing on music, but you're actually contributing to community and to society in all of these different ways. I found it very interesting you mentioned the work you're doing on lobbying and trying to get laws changed. I think obviously everyone has kind of witnessed the catastrophes that have been going on in America, where young Black men especially are being demonized by the police. And I think, what would you say is your feeling on this? Do you think you're hopeful that these laws are going to change and that we're making progress? Do you think more needs to be done right now? Like, what do you think the state is?
I'm very hopeful that it will change. I'm seeing the right kind of collaboration and interest from many different sides of the table on this particular issue. And I feel like it's just a matter of time. You know, our previous administration was against making this kind of change, which was, I think, a mistake on their part, because by saying that you're against it, you just made it more popular. And now you helped me with my job and in educating people that it is an issue. And over the next year or two, we're going to see individual states changing their practice, and we'll eventually see that the federal government will change their practice.
Yeah, I think it is kind of that ripple effect, and that even though it looks like a small step, one step in the right direction is going to lead to a bigger change, hopefully for us all soon to come. I just wanted to ask, is there anything, kind of coming back to music, is there anything we can expect to see from you coming soon? Any, sneak peeks you can give us?
Right now I'm working on projects that are related to the metaverse and Web3, the new generation of the internet that is ultimately coming to the fore. There is a project called Beatheads that I'm engaged with a visual artist who's creating these really interesting pictures, cartoon pictures of characters with headphones. And ultimately, we want to build a brand that can lead to live performances, collaborative music making, festivals. So that's one thing I'm working on. Another is a collaboration with the concept of cartoon artists. You know, everybody's familiar with the Gorillas, which was a cartoon presentation of music. But then when you think about the concept of an avatar or a cartoon or an animated character that's presenting music that we all love, it brings to mind so many other characters and artists like Daft Punk. I mean, we don't even know that they were actual humans. I mean, we can assume, but do we care? No, we loved the entertaining concept of anonymity under the helmet and suit and bodysuit. I think about Marshmello and Deadmau5. Yeah, we might know what they look like if we search hard enough on Google, but we don't care when we go to the concert what they look like. We just want to hear great music and be entertained. And so I feel like we are at a moment where an avatar, an animated artist, and it's obviously proven positive in Japan and Korea, where animated artists and avatars are working. So I want to bring all of the songs that don't match our Aloe Blacc's artist profile into the music world through avatars and other characters that I create.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that, like you said, the anonymity kind of draws us in and makes us even more intrigued. Just before we end the interview, just to take one question from the audience. So someone's asked, if there was one artist from history, I guess dead or alive, that you could have had the chance to collaborate with, who would that be?
Wow. I think the artist is Eugene McDaniels. Eugene McDaniels is an artist that ultimately was sampled by many, many hip hop artists. He had an album called Headless Heroes of the Apocalypse. It is one of my favorite albums of all time. Unfortunately, when he wrote that album in 1970, 71, at the same time, Marvin Gaye wrote What's Going On. Now, Marvin Gaye was asking the question, what's going on? Eugene McDaniels was explaining the answer of actually what's going on. One of his songs is called Supermarket Blues, where he talks about racism, being racially profiled in a supermarket by the employees, being brutalized by the employees, and then being accosted by the police and a gun pointed at his head. This is all 1971. It smacks so eerily of George Floyd's murder. It smacks so eerily of everything that's happened over the past few years or decades, going from, the incident that created the Watts riots and the Detroit riots up to Rodney King, up to today. And he was not afraid of saying what was real. The reason why we don't know his name is because the Nixon administration, the vice president, Spiro Agnew, and his henchmen called the record label to ban the album. So I've been a particular fan of Eugene McDaniel's music and his artistry. And if I could work with him, that's who I would want to work with.
Yeah, he sounds very inspirational, definitely. This brings us to the end of the interview, but honestly, Aloe, thank you so much for coming. I think this has been as much of a pleasure for all the members as it has been for me to interview you and hear more about your journey and everything you've been through in the music industry, but also in your life so far. So yeah, thank you so much, Aloe.
Thank you.
And to all the members, thanks so much for attending this event. And I look forward to seeing you at our debate on Thursday.